Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, and in addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
John Mann.
Is that... Mr. Speaker, is that it? Is it the best the Prime Minister can do? Nothing for British pensioners, nothing for British workers, and as the Office for Budget Responsibility and the Treasury have both confirmed, his long-term economic plan is reliant on over 1 million new migrants entering this country before 2020. Has the Prime Minister got the bottle to confirm this inconvenient truth?
Well, I tell you what we're doing for pensioners, and that is a triple lock on pensions. Never again the 75p rise they got from Labour, but either prices or wages or 2.5%. I can tell you what we're doing for people who want to work hard in Britain, that is create 2.3 million more jobs since I became Prime Minister. But yes, of course, I believe that we'll succeed more as a country if we get a good deal in Europe and stay in a reformed Europe. That will be good for jobs, good for investment, good for growth, and that's what I'm fighting for.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, is World Cancer Day. Cancer is a disease that almost every family in this country has been affected by in some way or another. 2.5 million people in this country have cancer. There are members on both sides of this House who have received or are receiving treatment at the present time. 1,000 people a day are diagnosed with cancer, and they go through a trauma as soon as they're diagnosed. But in the last year, there's been a 36% increase in the number of people waiting beyond 6 weeks for vital diagnostic tests. Could the Prime Minister do something to bring that down?
Well, first of all, I completely agree with the right honourable gentleman that the fight against cancer is one of the great fights of our time, and it's one we are determined to win. Now, when we look at how we treat cancer in our country, we're putting an extra £19 billion into our NHS, and specifically, while he's absolutely right, everyone in this House and every family in this country will know someone who's been affected by cancer, we are treating more patients. And let me give him the figures. Compared with 2010, over 645,000 more patients with suspected cancers have been seen. That is an increase of 71%, and almost 40,000 more patients have been treated for cancer. That is an increase of 17%. We've got more doctors, more nurses, more cancer specialists, but the fight against cancer is something we need to continue with.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, early diagnosis is absolutely essential in dealing with cancer. I think on that we all know. We know from personal experience on this. The government's independent task force into cancer reported last year, and I quote, "We currently have a serious shortage of radiologists in England. We need more of them." So could the Prime Minister explain why we're cutting by 5% the number of training places available for therapeutic radiographers?
We need more radiologists, and we're getting them because we're putting more money into the NHS. But where he's absolutely right is that waiting times... A minute ago, the Honourable Lady was shouting about waiting times. I'm going to answer the question on waiting times because there are 3 key targets on waiting times. First, that people should be seen by a specialist within 2 weeks of an urgent GP referral, and that we're meant to meet on 93% of occasions. We're currently meeting on 94.7%. We need to make sure the first treatment comes within 31 days of diagnosis. That is extremely important. There's a 96% standard, and that we're meeting by 97.7%. But I accept when it comes to the first treatment within 62 days, the standard's 85%, we're at 83.5%, so we need to improve our performance. Now, when it comes to training, we're increasing training places in our NHS. We discussed nurses last week, where we're actually opening up nurse training by making sure we train an extra 10,000 nurses. But the crucial point here is the money is there in our NHS because we've got a strong economy. 19 billion more money that would never be there if we followed his crazy economic plans.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, my specific question was on therapeutic radiographers. The Prime Minister did not answer that. Without an improvement in the numbers available, there will be a problem over treatment. That must be very obvious to absolutely everybody. The Cancer Task Force also asked, and I quote, for a radical upgrade in prevention and public health. Programmes like stopping smoking and anti-obesity are absolutely essential to stop the spread of cancer and indeed to help people to live better lives so they don't develop cancer at all. But if we cut, as he's proposing, £200 million from the public health budget, surely that is going to lead to an increase in cancer with all the trauma that goes with that and indeed the greater cost for the rest of the community. Could he explain why he's making this cut?
Well, first of all, let me just come back to on diagnostic radiographers, because there are actually 1,800 more diagnostic radiographers than when I became Prime Minister in 2010. And for the interests of fact, that is a 15% increase. And the reason there's an increase is that we said we would put more money into the NHS, a real terms increase, something that we were told by the then Shadow Health Secretary was irresponsible. Now, we ignored Labour and we put money into the health service, and as a result, there's been a 15% increase in diagnostic radiographers. Now, when it comes to the rest of the cancer plan, the money is being invested. There's a key difference, though, between England and Wales and something he can help with, which is there's a Labour government in Wales. And whereas we've got a cancer drugs fund, they have no cancer drugs fund in Wales. So he needs to sort that out with that Labour administration. As for public health, under this government, real advances have been made on public health, including smoking rules in the backs of cars, including plain paper packaging, including ring-fencing public health budgets, all done under the Conservatives, not done under Labour.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is responsible for the health service in England. Wales is a devolved matter, and he must be aware, that cancer survival rates are improving better in Wales than in any other part of the UK. But my question was, Mr. Speaker, was about the cut in public health budgets and the effect that has on cancer care. So, could the Prime Minister tell us when was the last time that the NHS target for starting cancer treatment was actually met within the 62 days required?
Well, as I've said to him, of the three big targets, we're meeting the specialist within 2 weeks target, we're meeting the first treatment within 31 days of diagnosis treatment. We're currently falling short of the 62 days target, something which I actually said in the answer to question 2, but he hasn't got round to it till question 5. I think the cogs need to turn a little bit faster. Now, he cannot wash his hands for the situation in Wales. Labour run Wales. And what have Labour done in Wales? Labour have cut the NHS in Wales. Now, it's now emerging what Labour's great plan is. They want to cut the NHS in Wales, and they want to put up income tax on hard-working people in Scotland. That's right. What are they going to do to radiographers in Scotland? Put up their taxes. What are they going to do to nurses in Scotland? Put up their taxes. What are they going to do to dentists in Scotland? Put up their taxes. We now know Labour's plan. Higher taxes for more welfare. They've learnt nothing in the last decade.
Mr. Speaker, the last time the 2-month target was met was 19 months ago. The Prime Minister must be aware of that, and I'm pleased if he's taking action to make sure that doesn't continue or get any worse. I want to turn to another issue that affects cancer patients, and that is the recently deleted provisions in the Welfare Reform and Work Bill that would have taken £30 per week from ESA claimants in the work-related activity group. Martin contacted me this week, who says, OK, it's very funny for many members opposite. It's not funny for Martin. Martin has a close friend who has breast cancer and, I quote, is obviously too unwell to work, and cuts will put her into hardship at a time when she's most vulnerable. There are 3,200 people with cancer hit by this cut to the ESA. Will the Prime Minister now confirm when that matter returns to the Commons, he will ensure the Lord's position is upheld and people like her do not suffer the cut that he wanted to make in the first place?
Well, let me explain to the right honourable gentleman and to the House the situation. As everybody knows, there are two sorts of employment and support allowance. There are the work-related activity group, who are able to train for some work, and then there's the support group, who go on getting employment and support allowance indefinitely. That is the situation, and what we've said is that in future, the work-related activity group should be paid at the same rate as job seekers' allowance. But that is for future claimants, not for existing claimants who continue to be paid at the same rate. And of course, if someone has cancer and can't work, they should be in the support group. And we've had this issue looked at again and again and again, and they should be, if they can't work, they go on getting the welfare payments they need. That is what a compassionate Conservative government does. But I have to come back to him, because he cannot wash his hands for the situation in Wales. Hip operations in England take 75 days waiting times on average. In Wales, it's 197 days. Diagnosis of pneumonia takes 2 weeks longer. Treatment of cataracts, hernias, heart operations take 2 months longer than in England. Labour are running Wales. He's responsible for Labour. Pick up the phone, tell them to stop cutting our NHS.
Mr. Speaker, it's very interesting the Prime Minister did not answer the question I put, which is whether or not he will proceed with the cut in ESA to 3,200 people with cancer at the present time. I hope he thinks seriously about this and does not proceed with this proposal. He will find that Macmillan Cancer Support, Rethink Mental Health Illness, Parkinson's UK are all united in opposing this cut because of the effect it will have on people with a range of very serious conditions. The Prime Minister used to say that those with the broadest shoulders should bear a greater load. Can it be right that cancer patients and those with disabilities on £102 per week really are those with the broadest shoulders who should bear this cut? Please, Prime Minister, think again and don't try and reverse the decision of the House of Lords on this important matter.
The people with the broadest shoulders are the highest earners in this country, and they're paying a higher share of tax than they ever did under Labour. And that money is paying for our NHS, is paying for our welfare system. And I answer the question very directly. If you're an existing claimant on employment and support allowance, your welfare isn't changing. But in future, those people who are able to get back to work, we should help them to get back to work. That is what a compassionate country does. But it's quite clear what Labour's policy is. Cut the NHS in Wales, put up taxes in Scotland to pay for more welfare. That's not the approach that this country needs.
Order. But first, let's hear what you thought about PMQs.
Yes, lots of people emailed in response to the health matters raised by Jeremy Corbyn on waiting times for cancer treatment. David Braddock, just listening to Jeremy Corbyn today, I'm tempted to rename the Labour Party the Benefits Party. It's all he ever blabbers on about. Ryan Morrison, Jeremy Corbyn asked proper and detailed questions on a serious issue, namely health. Dave flipped the issue and couldn't answer the question. I thought I was watching UK Question Time, not Welsh NHS questions. David Fraser said the Conservatives, now they have reduced the National Health Service to decimal points. What does that tell you? It tells me everything. And Damien Limack, it looks like Jeremy Corbyn has bitten off more than he can chew. While trying to attack the Conservatives on their NHS policies, he fails to deal with his own party's record with the NHS in Wales. And finally, this came from Terry Sharp. He accuses the Prime Minister of lying to Parliament about ESA support, which was the discussion at the end exchange between Jeremy Corbyn and the Prime Minister. He says you do not get it indefinitely, as he stated. In fact, you are reassessed every 2 years.
And That's all, folks.